We're going to turn to Anna Papyan now. Anna is a research assistant in the University of Limerick with PPI Ignite there, and also a community development officer at Shannon Family Resource Centre. And she's going to be talking about involving ethnic minorities in research. So Anna, over to you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for invitation. It is really interesting discussion, and I'm delighted to participate in the conference. As already mentioned, I work as community development officer at Shannon Family Resource Centre, and also have been collaborating with the PPI unit in the University of Limerick for different occasions and different projects which I mentioned. And I will be going to talk about importance of involving ethnic minorities in PPI research, and how to reach out to people and how to make them feel comfortable during their participation. Individuals within with different ethnic backgrounds can respond differently to the same treatment, and involving ethnic minority participation in clinical research trials would help researchers find better treatments and also uncover if there are any differences between by gender, race, and ethnicity. But also from the other side, when we talk about the sociological research, involvement of ethnic minorities is also very important. And despite growing recognition of importance of participatory research, migrants and ethnic minorities are often excluded from having their voice heard in relation to the policies, activities, and changes that would affect them. So in this regard, I was involved in a few projects. One of them was a project related is ethnic minority health research project conducted by the University of Limerick Graduate Medical School in collaboration of Shannon Family Resource Centre. And basically the idea was that there was a proposal from HSE that people attending primary healthcare units would be asked certain questions about their ethnicity, their language, and or country of origin, as well as religion. And the idea was to ask representatives of ethnic minority groups how would they feel answering those, being asked those questions in primary healthcare facilities, and what they think about it. One of the biggest challenges of conducting research is recruiting participants and enrolling an adequate number of eligible and diverse participants is one of the most crucial requirements of successful research, and especially when it is related to ethnic minorities. It is supposed that participants in research should reflect the diversity of culture and conditions in society and community, taking into consideration the race and the ethnicity, gender, age, etc. As I mentioned, the main issue was how to reach out, how to find those participants, representatives of ethnic minority groups that would participate in discussions. The first step probably would be the mapping existing ethnic minority groups in community. And in this part of it is very important to collaborate and make consultation with community organizations who are working in the area, local groups, local organizations, and find out the key groups and also key people to approach in order to get to recruit participants, so-called gatekeepers. And community organizations working with minority groups are interacting with them on daily basis and are familiar with cultural diversity, history, situation, and researchers need to have a bit of more knowledge about the cultural diversity, even political situation to deal with the people of their countries of origin. For example, when we were trying to involve a group of Syrian refugees into discussions, one of our organizations working with them, with the Syrian refugees, advised, for example, to approach the group in one settlement and do not try to approach the other group in the other settlement, because they were just relatively new into the community, and it would be difficult for them to get involved into discussions at that time. It is always easier to approach already existing ethnic minority group gatherings, like Polish scout groups, or maybe churches, peer support groups, and group leaders would be a key point to approach, key persons to approach and ask to organize the meetings when we could represent the project and invite people to participate. And as I already mentioned about the collaboration of local community organizations, it is important to get them involved from the beginning of the project, even at the stage of elaboration of project proposal, because they will give a good advice. They work, as I mentioned, with ethnic minority groups on daily basis, and they will give good advice in terms of project proposal, timing, and places where we can approach people and conduct our research. The other part I would like to talk about is how to make people feel comfortable. We should make sure that participants would feel comfortable with each other. As we talk about minority groups, some representatives of ethnic minority groups would feel comfortable to be involved in discussions with other ethnic minority groups, but some might not feel comfortable and would prefer to have discussion within their own ethnic group. So this should be taken into consideration. The other thing, some groups might feel comfortable to be involved in mixed gender or age group discussions. Some groups would prefer to have women only or men only group, or younger only and older only group. So this is another thing to be taken into consideration. The other important part is for effective discussion is the space, the place where if people have a place, ethnic minority have a place where they have their gatherings, it would be more comfortable for them to have discussions there. It would be easier to go to them. And we need to make sure that the place of discussion is neutral, comfortable, welcoming, and tea and coffee and refreshments are provided, which makes sometimes it's good to have the informal conversation rather than having formal agenda. And with some groups, for example, icebreakers would work, but some groups wouldn't. So it is, again, I'm coming to consultation with local organizations who know those groups and would give a good advice how to approach each of the group, and approach could be different. Also, being creative and flexible, working with different groups and working with ethnic minorities, one of the key challenges would be the language. Of course, many of them would know English and would be easily participate in discussions in English. But if we want not to exclude those who do not speak English, we should find some ways to get them involved. And interpretation during these discussions can be a bit tricky and difficult and challenging, but we had a couple of positive experience having discussions with interpreter, and they were very successful. And especially when you try to use services of an interpreter who is well known to the group. For example, she accompanies them to all their medical appointments and all the other appointments, and they feel comfortable to speak out in her or his presence. Another challenge that could be with the group of ethnic minorities would be literacy issues as well, and we might need to be flexible to change the protocol or guidance of the discussion. For example, if we need when we do qualitative research, we always encourage active participation of people involved in discussion, and we might, for example, have an idea that we ask a question and give them time to think, and then they write answer in a piece of paper and stick on the wall. This is one of the techniques. But if we know in advance that there might be literacy issues within the group, we might need to change the approach and practicalities and act in a different way. In general, of course, it is important to keep in mind all the ethical requirements when conducting participatory research, and as it was talked about earlier, ethical committees would go through the research proposal and make sure that all the requirements are in place, and also to keep in mind when working with ethnic minorities as well, it includes being very clear about, honest and clear about the project goals, aims, scope of their involvement, timing, about feedback and privacy, how the results will be used, because there might be sensitive questions to be discussed, as I mentioned, the project about ethnical background, and at the end, I would like just to mention that we would like to get everyone's voice heard, but in terms of time, and especially when we do qualitative research and we're dealing with minority groups, ethnic minority groups, we cannot include everyone. The minority groups can be in different situations, can be in refugee camps, can be on their own houses, and they may have different, some people could be under different types of refugee protection. Some could be already Irish citizens, so it's different. And knowing the situation for each ethnic group would be very useful in order to organize effective discussions with minority groups. So I would say that's all. If there are any questions.
Thank you, Anna. That's been a really interesting presentation. I think you've done a really good job there of highlighting how every minority group is different, and even every individual within those groups is also different. I wonder, can you give, so if a researcher was thinking about engaging with a new minority group for the first time, what would be the number one thing that you think that they should do to make sure that that engagement is successful?
I would mention that try to get as much information as possible about the needs of the group, the situation of the group, and approach local organizations and approach gatekeepers, people who are dealing with that ethnic minority group on a daily basis, and they will give a good advice when and how to approach each group.
I think, yeah, that specific expertise is
Yeah.
important. So there's a lot of plaudits, a lot of really good comments about your presentation, but not so many questions. People are saying that they're just scribbling notes furiously, which is a good sign. And thank you so much for that. If nobody else has any questions, we might move on just to the closing remarks. So,
hi, Patrick, sorry. Can I just jump in and ask you to call on Helen, please, for a second? I think she has a comment she'd like to make.
Yes, sorry, Helen, I didn't see you there. Yeah, absolutely, jump in.
No, you wouldn't see me, Patrick. Dementia and chat are not best friends.
Okay.
And I couldn't find raise your hand. So I just wanted to comment, Patrick, on PPI, on the word PPI, and why it's not a favorite word. And I suppose for me, as a person with, as the patient, it took us years to get this far. To be part of the story, to be part of the journey and part of participation. And in Europe, we call it public involvement. In Global Brain, we call it public patient voice. But at the end of the day, we could come up with all kinds of names. But it's just the most important thing that I want to say is that we're here. We're at the table. I'm here with you today, and that is amazing. If we think over the years that the person or the patient has not been involved. And I want to end on that positive note that no matter what we say or no matter what we call it, we're still the person, we're still the patient, and we still want to be involved. And it's just been a great day. And for those of us with involved in public patient involvement or public person involvement, it's great that we have days like this, Patrick, that we can listen and we can share. And I was waiting all day for the last speaker, because it's just something that we struggle with ourselves as a group, getting ethnic minorities involved. Thanks to everybody. It's just been wonderful. And thanks, Patrick, for listening.
Thank you, Helen. And again, Anna, thank you. And if there's any other questions for Anna or any of the other speakers, by all means, get in touch and we'll be happy to forward them on. So we're going to hand over to Andrew Murphy now.